Welcome. My name is Lynn McGrath, and in this Global Vision episode, you're going to hear from two fabulous guitarists who happen to also own their own private lesson studios. I spoke with both of them about how they were able to build and maintain those studios, and they have so much fabulous advice to offer. I spoke first with John Ferrara, who's based in Syracuse, New York, and then I spoke with Christopher Mallett out of the South Bay area in California. I found what they had to say incredibly inspiring, and I hope you do too. Hey, John, nice to see you today. Thanks so much for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You basically started something from scratch. You went right from your undergraduate degree and jumped into creating your own business. So, before we really start with some deeper questions about how you did that, can you
Mhm.
just tell us about your studio, about what you're doing, where you're from, where you are, what kind of students you're teaching? I know that's already a lot of questions, but
Well,
go for it.
okay, well, yeah, my name is John Ferrara, and I live here in central New York, Syracuse, New York. And about 22 years ago, I started giving guitar lessons. And I first got my start in a music store, and I worked in the music store selling guitars as well as giving lessons. And as time went on, the space for the music store wasn't 100% great for students in a teaching situation. And I kind of toyed with the idea of maybe getting my own place, getting something a little bit bigger where we could, have a little bit more space. The guitars could be a little bit more safe and things can be a little bit more open. And I ventured out and started my own shop. So I've been doing it for quite a while now, and I have, you know, a few different programs that I do. I give lessons. I give rock and roll, classical guitar, uh, steel string acoustic, folk guitar, and I also have a children's program that I also do, which is called the Child Bloom Guitar Program, which is a national program that's been around for close to 40 years now. It was started by Kevin Taylor in Austin, Texas, and a great program that I've been doing for quite a while.
Fantastic. So, what I like is that you're offering a perspective of someone who yeah started like many people start. I did the same thing. I was starting in guitar shops in California, and
Mhm.
yeah, I taught in basically a closet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not sustainable for me. And then you found a way to then create your business. And so before we move on with too much more, what is the name of your business?
Oh, the name of my school is the Music School of CNY, Central New York. And it's a nice little studio. Like I said, we have all these things that we offer, and from time to time, we have other types of lessons, such as bass guitar and piano and keyboard as well.
Now, I definitely am interested in the Child Bloom program that you're talking about because I know that a lot of people are familiar with Suzuki programs and getting
Mhm.
certified, but I think a lot of people don't know about Child Bloom, and I know about it through you. I mean, this is something you've been a part of for many years,
Mhm.
and so my question is, what brought you to that? I mean, what kind of things have you learned from that experience, and what are some advantages that you've enjoyed from going through that program?
Well, it's a good question. I stumbled across the Child Bloom program through like Soundboard magazine a million years ago when I was in music school, and or Guitar Review magazine, one of the two. And I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any idea of how to teach kids, and at the time, I think I really didn't even believe that you could teach kids so young. Really just get like real things accomplished with children. Um, and but when I saw that those ads in those magazines, and thought about it. I looked into. I knew it was something great, And at the time, I had no experience, no money, no way I could do that. But I knew someday I'm going to do that. And then the time came after I graduated from music school. I had a few years of experience, and then I finally got my space where I had some good, adequate room, and I decided that I was going to go do that. Um, it's a great program. I love it. I looked into many other things, but I think for me, the Child Bloom thing was definitely the best. Um, and then the people that I deal with at Child Bloom are great. Kevin's a great guy, and an excellent teacher and pedagogue, and this program is really, really great for kids. So once I got certified and started to teach, I believe I did that in 2002 or 2003. So it's been quite some time.
So I guess some other things that I'd like to know. You know, I think a lot of people, um, they're looking and thinking about how they can start a business. That it's not an easy process. It can be a bit overwhelming, and I think a lot of folks don't know where to start. And so now, with all of this experience that you've had, what kind of advice would you give to someone who's deciding they want to start a studio, or say they've even got one, they've made some inroads, but they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So can you give us some advice?
I would just do the best that you can. To be honest with you, I started my business as a young man, no business savvy or experience or anything. I just really honestly just thought it was a cool thing to do. That, you're teaching guitar to people who want to learn how to play guitar. What's better than that? Nothing. And, I honestly had no plan. I just knew it would be a great thing to do. I knew it would work if I just did it. So one of the most important things is to get started. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be rich. You don't have to have this, that, or the other thing. I started this business with nothing, just like a couple of, old chairs and wire music stand and a little amplifier. And I just got started. That I believe is the most important thing. And you don't have to have all the answers. You can find other people that have answers. There's other, I've met through my business many of the parents who also were entrepreneurs and experts in their own fields and had a lot of experience with other, aspects of business. And I kind of tapped into that a little bit. And then as the years went on, I do consider myself very, very lucky. But I tried to ask myself, well, how could I further a great experience for my students? And from there, I started to do some digging and some reading and some experimenting and kind of taking it from there. I would say just learn as much as you can and just go for it. There's no perfect time to do it, but now.
Awesome. And I think a lot of times as musicians, we're like trying to get everything just right before that recital. And we have that mentality about taking risk when it comes to other, if you are branching off into teaching and things like that. But I think that's really great advice. You gotta start somewhere. You've got to jump
Yeah,
in. And there
that's
are so
true.
many resources. I've used you as a resource over the years that I've been teaching. I can just think of so many times, probably over 100 times, that I called you up and said, "Hey, I got this issue with this kid. What would you do?" And I don't always do exactly what you say, but I listen. And you've got this. You've evolved. Kind of your teaching philosophy has evolved over the years, and it's obviously been quite effective.
Thanks.
I think ensemble playing, I know for me personally, is one of those things that a lot of teachers shy away from. But I think it's an important part of studio building. And I know that you share my philosophy. So, can you talk to us a little bit about how having an ensemble has helped with building your studio?
Yeah, I think ensemble playing is like the life's blood of a music studio, especially something that like what I do. Um, you kids are social, and they don't want to be locked in their room by themselves playing and practicing all the time. I mean, they want to have an opportunity to have this thing that they do and share it with other kids that do the same thing. And it's a lot of fun. The kids, they love it. And it takes the pressure off. It's not like they have to learn a whole set or play 100% by themselves. You know, they got their friends with them. I play in the ensemble with them as well. And, you know, I just think of it as a group that I'm a part of. You know, I'm not the instructor. I'm the other guy in the band. And I think it really helps to encourage the kids to delve in deeper to the guitar, and they just love it, and it really helps those kids with their confidence and their motivation to progress and go in further to the guitar.
All right, awesome, John. So the next question I have to ask is more of a nuts and bolts question, because obviously we can love to teach and learn to be better teachers. But when it comes down to it, oftentimes we have to have that other side of the coin, that business sense, that like to have answers about just the nuts and bolts of how we actually either start our own business, or even if we're just teaching out of our home or teaching out of a studio, there's still a lot of other concerns. And I think that a lot of people are a little nervous about getting started because of those concerns. So could you talk to us about your journey with that and some of the resources that you would recommend?
Okay, I honestly didn't have any answers at all when I started. I truly was like clueless and just going for it, you know. Um, but over the years, you know, I don't think you need to have all the answers. You know, for example, my first year of guitar lessons and all my receipts, I took all my receipts and things that I needed. I threw them in a bag, and I didn't have an accountant. You know, so through one of my the moms that I was teaching their kid, they're like, "Oh, we got a good accountant," and I was a young guy, so I didn't know what to do. And once I met this accountant, she told me how I was supposed to get my receipts and stuff together and organize, and to file my taxes. You know, so I was like, "Oh, okay." It was the furthest thing from my mind throughout the year, and you know, that sort of thing. But you don't have to have all the answers. There are other people that are way more successful than you, that are way more knowledgeable than you, and they have areas of expertise. You know, in like the accountant, or a lawyer. You know, if you were going to incorporate a business, or maybe if you were maybe doing something out of your house and seeing what kind of insurance you would need for, you know, liability or whatever. Um, Having said that, a great organization, which I think is in every single town, is called SCORE, and I believe it's score.org is the website, and it's a education and mentoring business education and mentoring. A lot of times when I was doing it, there was a lot of retired CEOs with tons of experience in certain areas, like investing or insurance, or, you know, marketing or whatever. And they would hold these seminars often. You know, you go there. I think I went on a Wednesday, paid like 40, $50, and hung out there and listened to these seminars for a few hours, and got a bunch of information. And, you know, and then they have a lot of follow-up that you can do. Um, that's a great resource for any entrepreneur. It doesn't even matter what your business is, but it certainly does help, and makes you think a little bit with the studio business. You know, and you don't have. I just don't think you have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything. You just got to do it, and then from there, you know, whatever problem you may have, is say, okay, who can I go talk to handle this situation? Be good or bad or just normal, you know, mundane stuff. It's not one of my favorite things to do, any of the business stuff. I love to teach. I love to do the guitar stuff. My least favorite thing in the whole entire universe is all that stuff, but you have to do it.
Yep, I hear you. I absolutely agree. And Yeah, sitting down and, it's so fun to be there in the moment, teaching a student, having those, but then at the end of the day, when you're trying to do your paperwork and just
Yeah,
even organizing, lesson schedules and see
yeah,
rescheduling students and dealing with billing and things
it's
like
crazy.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot to do. It's definitely something that is a challenge, but it's good to know that there are resources. I had no idea about that. The resource that you just mentioned, Score,
Oh,
and
yeah, Score. Yeah, there's a wealth of them. Score's a great one. There's a zillion things on the internet. There's mentoring programs. There's so much these days that you can one can look into. And honestly, if you have students and you have people in other fields of expertise, it's just ask them, just talk to them. I have a pretty good relationship with all of my parents and stuff, and we chit chat, some small talk before and after the lesson, and sometimes these things come up, and sometimes some incredibly helpful things they have told me.
thanks, John. So another question: you mentioned earlier that you're not just teaching classical guitar, and so can you talk about the diversity of the students that are, knocking on your door, calling up your studio, and saying, "Hey, I want lessons." I mean, I'm guessing these aren't just all aspiring classical guitarists.
No, they're not at all. I have a wide variety of people wanting to learn a very diverse different styles. I have sometimes I have relatives of the children that I teach, or vice versa. I'm teaching somebody like dad. I'm teaching dad in some rock and roll, and then he brings his kid in to learn maybe child bloom. Or you have some people who are older who are just trying to. They used to play the guitar years ago, and now they have the time and they want to learn what they put down a while back.
Right, and a lot of times now they have the income too.
Oh yeah, yes,
It's a demographic that's often ignored by a lot of folks when they jump into teaching. They're not, realizing like, oh my gosh, it's like so much of my studio is made up of people who, yeah, are already have careers or are still working full time, or
yep.
are retirees, or people picking up the guitar after many years. So yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And so I have another question, a follow up question to that, and that is, so how do you teach differently? Like, do you need to adjust your teaching to deal with students from all these different backgrounds and different goals?
There are some things that are universal, rhythm, being in tune, that sort of thing, that everybody has to kind of follow or get as close to as you can. But some people, they have their minds work differently than mine or a musician. So it's really my job to try to see how they tick and how they're going to understand what I'm trying to convey to them to achieve the task at hand. Um, sometimes I got engineers that are very literal, and I say, oh, you gotta go up in pitch, and they think up is up here because it's up and not referring to pitch, and it's funny because there's some characteristics like that, but yeah, you can't really you can't one size fits all doesn't work, and you have to adjust, so that you can produce some results for your students.
Thank you so much for your time. I know your time is precious. You're a busy guy. And, I'd like to end with you talking about your philosophy. I know that you have this philosophy that you've shared with me in the past, and I think it's really powerful. So, can you share that with everyone who's watching today?
Well, I don't know. I just, if for anybody who wants to do a music studio or teach in whatever capacity, you've got to have a why. What's your why? For me, I love the guitar. I have to share it. I have to be involved in it. And there's a million ways, by teaching and playing and talking about guitars and talking about gear and all kinds of things like that. Um, that's got to be your why. I feel for me personally, it's like I have to show people what I know about the guitar. I have to show them how awesome the guitar is and what people could do themselves with that guitar. and it's just that's my why. It's the whole reason why I do this. It gets me all charged up to go into the shop and work with all of my students and just to really enjoy this experience of the guitar. And it's a great experience, and I love it so much. I want to just share it with everybody else.
Well, your enthusiasm is infectious, and that's it. I mean, I think that enthusiasm and that love comes through that sharing, and it keeps us, keeps us going. Definitely, definitely. I think I've got a similar why. So thank you so much, John. Thanks for being with us today, and take care.
Thanks for having me, and just go for it.
We're here with Chris Mallett today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
You've done so many great things in the guitar world, not only as a performer in your duo, as a concert artist, a recording artist, but I know that I first met you when actually, I think the first time I met you is when I heard your students. And you had come in for the Guitar Foundation of America International Youth Competition. And I was blown away by your students. And I remember one of your students made it to the final round and you flew out like that day to be able
That's
to hear it.
right.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. It was the first time that I've had a student actually compete in the GFA, and I was just kind of hanging back, and then they let me know, and then, like you said, I went out there because they made it to the finals, and I was really exciting. And it's just, and it's been a great relationship that I've had with GFA and just like the youth competitions. I was actually there for the very first youth competition in 2005. I was a student at Oberlin at the time, and I remember the winner, Travis. It was the first time I personally saw a young guitarist, at that level. And then everyone, I remember he was sitting there tuning his guitar. And I was like, oh, look at the cute little kid. And he started playing, and it was just like, oh my God. And I remember it kind of was that was one, like, kind of a pivotal point for me that, I saw that, pre-college is kind of, it can be really amazing, and you can really get great results with, teaching kids. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And certainly your kids are amazing. And yeah, and I've enjoyed doing the same thing. I never thought I'd be teaching younger kids. It just wasn't what I expected to do. And that's something we'll talk about in the interview for sure. Because I think a lot of people are in that same boat where they're just like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
I'm going to be a
yeah.
college teacher, but they don't
I
realize
was I
how
was there.
awesome it is to teach kids and how great
Yeah,
they actually can become with
yeah,
time. Yeah. So actually, you touched on something. You touched on the fact that you have an amazing pedigree for education, for your Oberlin, Yale, and I think a lot of people too. There's that idea like, oh, someone's teaching kids because they're just not really a performer, and that's just absolutely outrageous. There's so many examples of these really high level performers like yourself teaching at different levels,
yeah,
and that's something that's really been like a change, I think, in the environment in the scene over the last, who knows, I guess 10 to 15 years
yeah,
especially, which is
yeah.
kind of cool. So basically, I guess one of the best places we could start is just what are you doing now? Where are you teaching? What's going on? Who are you teaching? What are you doing? Where are you, and what are you up to?
Okay, yeah. So I live in the Bay Area, specifically in San Jose. I've been living in the Bay Area now for about, I think, 10 years now, and we can talk a little bit later of how I ended up out here. But right now, what I do out here is I'm the co-director and co-owner of two music schools called the California Conservatory of Music. We have one location that's kind of in the South Bay, in Sunnyvale, and one a little bit closer to San Francisco and Redwood City that we started, a couple years back. So the first school we started, we meaning Robert Miller and I were the two co-directors of the school. We started the first location around 9 years ago, and then the second one probably around 4 years ago, and started with just like me, Robert, another teacher, and then slowly grew, and now we have, I think, around, I think, 12 guitar teachers, 11 piano teachers. We have 5 violin teachers, and we have like over 600 students. But the cool part is that, the majority of the students are classical guitarists. And I think that's pretty rare in kind of like one of these music schools. You see a lot of majority piano students or something, or majority violin students. But, it's just great to have like over 300 students playing not just guitar, but classical guitar. So that's
you're building an army of classical guitarists.
Yeah, it's our goal. We love it.
That is amazing. So I didn't realize that you had so many teachers, and how incredible to add an extra location not long into having established the business. I mean, that's just a sign of incredible growth, and obviously you're doing something really right. and that's definitely one of the reasons why I'm interviewing you is I think you're going to have some insight and how the scene works, and I mean, about retention and building programs like this. So that's awesome. And what kind of ages are you teaching? Like, what is the span? Are you teaching people from all ages, or is it mostly kids? How are you? Who do you teach?
Yeah, at the school, we start students as early as the age of 3, and as we could go into later, we teach, especially with guitar, we use the Suzuki Method, and then of course a majority of the students are probably between 6 and 15, and then we have some older teenagers and adults. Of course, my personal my students are all now in high school. Most of them are in high school. I have a couple middle school students, and the reason why they're all old now is because they all started with me between the ages of 3 and 5 and have been with me since the beginning. So I'm basically teaching the same students, the same group of students at my school that I taught when I first moved out here, which is really incredible, because I don't have any kids yet, but it's like I have like a whole bunch, because I'm seeing all of them really develop from, one student, she started with me when she was 2.5, and she just turned 13 the other day. So it's like, I actually worked with her when she couldn't even count yet. We were throwing the die, and half of the lesson was teaching her how to count the size of the die. And now she's playing pieces in book 6 of Suzuki. So it's kind of an amazing experience to see this.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying, though I have to say I have never started a student as young as that. I mean, that's really impressive. That's something I definitely want to talk to you more about. A lot of folks work so hard to build their playing chops, and hey, we want to build our playing chops. That's what we do, and we're aspiring guitarists. But teaching chops can be a little bit more challenging to develop. And so it sounds like you have been Suzuki. You absolutely have been Suzuki trained. But it sounds like you've done some other things too to build your teaching chops. So what kind of things did you do, and what is your basic philosophy for, like, how do you feel about how pedagogy should be structured within a studio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, first I'd like to say that I think that, it's better to think about kind of like your teaching philosophy and your teaching chops earlier than later. Like, start thinking about it in undergrad. You don't have to dedicate your entire life to it, and just like me, and many others, you want to practice, all day and all night. And it's important to do that because, a majority of us were performance majors and not education majors per se, who are going into, kind of the world of private studio teaching. But I really think that it's important to just do the research and see where the trainings happen. And the way I fell into it, I was kind of on the same path as most guitarists. I went straight through, did my bachelor's, did my master's, and then I actually went through and started my doctorate. And I and kind of a little bit into the program, I was kind of realizing that, like, it wasn't for me. The program I went to, great teacher, but it was very small. I was the only classical guitarist in the program.
Wow.
And I was like one of like 3 DMA students. Everyone else was PhD. So while I was there, I was kind of, researching to see like what I can do to kind of just get out there and start teaching and start working. And then I'd been interested in Suzuki for some time. I didn't really know much about it. I just knew that, there were a lot of, at the time, this was maybe like 11 years ago, I started seeing a lot more young students coming up. And every time I would look into their biography or their teacher's biography or something, it would say that they were a Suzuki teacher and they're coming from Suzuki. So it was something that really interested me. And I saw that there was an opening up in the Bay Area at this teacher, Frank Longe, at his studio. And I just I contacted him, and the opening was just filled, unfortunately, by someone else who actually,
Oh no.
Robert Miller, the guy I owned the school with, he just got the job there, I think, a week before me, and he didn't take the listing down. But I just told him, I was like, I want to come up there. I want to observe your students. I think that, we'd work really well together. And luckily he invited me up, and, a couple months later, an opening did come up. So one of the benefits of working for me with Frank Longe was that, if people don't know, he was the one who adapted the Suzuki Method onto the guitar. Him and Bill Kostler, another guitarist who's somewhere on the East Coast. And before that, it was primarily violin and piano. But then, and also another quick side note, if people look in the Suzuki Book 1, they'll see a picture of Connie when she was very young.
I have
and she was a student of Frank. Yeah. And she was, so it was, and working with him was amazing because, I had already had the interest in teaching younger people, especially because, just seeing how high level they were. And I just got to work with him on a daily basis, which was really, really, really amazing. Suzuki trainings are amazing too. And the one thing I like about the Suzuki trainings that anyone can sign up for is that they're 1 week intensive, and then you watch people teach, and then they watch you teach. So it's like really a lot of hands-on. It's not just sitting there listening to someone tell you how to teach. You're actually going into the trenches and you're doing it. And that's one thing I really liked about teaching at Frank's school, is that, I got there, he gave me a 3-year-old, like right off the bat. But the beautiful part was, he was just like, all right, I'm throwing you in. But the beautiful part is that I was lucky enough and that I can go to him anytime and ask for tips, so that really helped me with my teaching. So anything that would happen, there's so many stories I can tell that were just totally insane with my students, but I would go to him, and because he'd been teaching Suzuki for 30 years, he had basically the answer to everything. And then in addition to that, he would come in multiple times a week and, write observations on my teaching and like kind of almost grade me, in all my teaching. And I would have to go watch him and write, reports on his teaching. So it was really kind of this really intensive, even though it was a teaching job, but it was basically an apprenticeship. And I got to work side by side with him doing this for a year until he passed away. And, I think that, I'm so lucky to have been able to really kind of be immersed in that teaching environment, basically right after school.
Yeah. Really. And I think this idea, it's something that's kind of lost, I think, for a lot of people, this idea of that teaching is how we learn to teach. It's not just go off on your own, do this thing and hope that something sticks. It really is complicated. And to have a master teacher observing you, and to observe a master teacher and to have that constant feedback. Yeah. What a treasure. What an amazing thing. And to the source, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. You hit on something else that I really wanted to talk about. You talked about the community. And I feel like teaching chops, you got to have teaching chops. You have to have tools. You have to work to be a good teacher, but also to really retain students, to build programs. I feel like my experience has been you have to have a relationship with your community, and a strong one, and you have to nurture that relationship. And I know that you've been really involved with your community. So can you talk to us about some of the things that you've done to build that relationship with the community and to build your studio through that?
Of course. Yeah. So community building is a fantastic way to build your studio. And it's, it's free exposure. It's really good for the students, and the community will thank you always, So a few things that we've done, at our school, we really, especially when students get older and they're getting ready for college applications, they're looking for kind of ways to, pad their resume, but they actually do care. But it's great that they're doing this through a guitar. So, we've had actually not just high school students. One of our students, Sean, he started when he was maybe started doing this when he was, I think, 8 years old. He's been doing every year now a fundraiser for the Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, which is a children's hospital up here in Palo Alto, California. And he does a fundraiser every year for the kids in the cancer ward. And not just him, but he actually organizes it and then has like our students at the school go there to different locations. Last year they played at a mall. A couple times they've held it at my school. So, it's like a huge talent show.
Wow.
And it's like a beautiful thing. And it's like this kid is, 8 years old. I think he's probably 12 now, but from a young age, he's learning about, like what it is to give back to the community from such a young age. And that he's just going to grow up being a really caring, empathetic person. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And it's kind of become like, now every year we have students asking like, when can we sign up for this event? We want to go, we want to play with Ashan's, it's called the Bye Bye Cancer fundraiser. And I think he's raised over $10,000 now on it, actually.
Gosh.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we really encourage students to do is to play in the community. We had another student for years and years. She would raise money. Also with the talent show, having students at her school to build houses in Mexico. So, those kind of community engagement things are beautiful. Before the pandemic, we were having students every week go play in nursing homes, hospitals, and it's just all these things it's word spreads about this, and then other people hear, and then they want to be a part of it, and then they'll sign up their kids so they can be a part of it. So it's a great way to really expand your studio. In addition to that, we have a nonprofit, and we just started this program. It just got off the ground last week. Something we've been really excited about. It's called Goals. It's guitar outreach and leadership skills, and we're working with the first school now. It's a school called Popular Escuela in San Jose, and we have 12 students there now who are going to take lessons for free all year. And what the most exciting thing for us is that the teachers are actually the advanced students at the California Conservatory.
Oh
So
my
these
God.
kids, high school age kids, are now going to be teaching every single week for the entire year. So not only are they learning these leadership skills, but they're going to be learning how to teach. They have, like, we just jumped on with the training with them. Rob and I trained them. So we're going to have training with the students, and they're going to learn how to teach. And then hopefully the students at the Popular Escuela then next year will then start, almost like a mentor, start teaching the younger kids at their school. So it's a beautiful thing.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
What an amazing idea. And I know that I've encouraged a lot of my students to take on students. It's one of the best ways to reinforce, that suddenly it's, I have to explain this. I have to put this into words. I have to show someone. I have to help them and nurture them. And it gives them, it makes them look at things in a different perspective. It helps them have more balance in their own performances. They have to be encouraging to, and see people struggling, and they're even kinder toward themselves as well. It's amazing the extra benefits that I've seen from that kind of thing. But that program sounds wonderful. How special. Yeah.
Yeah. We're really excited to see how it turns out. Today was the first day of lessons. So, it's a big adventure for us. So, we'll report back next year and let everyone know how it's going.
Excellent. Oh, this all sounds so wonderful. Let's see. So I have another question I'd really like to ask. And what are the ways that you keep kids motivated? Like, do you have anything in place to keep them motivated, keep them working, and to retain them in the studio?
Yeah, we do. There's a few things that we do. I'll kind of start with the history of kind of our, reward system and retention stuff that we do at my school. And it's easy to implement. Anyone really can do this. So we started off, and it's another idea that we kind of got from Frank, and it's really tracking the practice that you do. So what we do at the school, it's really simple. What we started off with is just a piece of paper. We have like some columns in there for the teachers to fill out, and I kind of pre-filled out a few of them. So like the first one is, I practiced every day. If they do that, they get a little X in each box. And then there's 7 boxes for 7 days, and then you count the points up. That way, the next one is, underneath, I listened to my parent or my teacher today. And then every time they do that, they get an X. And then after that, the teacher is free to fill out, practice their scales, work on this passage. And then if they earn a certain amount of points, they'll be able to redeem those points when they come back the next week and get a prize out of a prize basket or something like that. For the younger kids, like these fun little prizes, this little, cheap thing, but like the kids love it. They come back every week and, they bring their paper and like, I practiced every day this week, and they slam the paper on and we give them the prize. And then if they achieve the prize, if they get through the practice every single day for the month, then they'll redeem enough points to be able to get a gift certificate to, like, what we do is Jamba Juice. So then they get a gift certificate to Jamba Juice. But the thing that's even more exciting than all those kind of small rewards are that after a month, we start giving other prizes, such as for 1 month, they get a ribbon. It's like, we call it the 30-day ribbon. So that signifies that they've practiced every single day without fail for 30 days. Once they get to 50 days, they get a medal, like a cool little, medal. So, and we take a picture of it, we share it on our Facebook. So then, the parents see it and then they share it to their friends. And then the kids, feel like they're famous because they're on the internet. And then after that, the 100-day challenge, they get a trophy. So it just keeps going up from there. And then once our kind of philosophy and goal is once they get to 100 days of daily practice, it's going to really be a part of their daily routine, because that's what we're really trying to go for. And even like Suzuki said, only practice on the days that you eat. So we kind of think about that. It's like, it doesn't have to be a lot. When we have a 3-year-old starting, and this is a great tip for other teachers out there, it's like, it can feel really difficult to get someone to practice every day, but just as long as they know that all it takes is 5 minutes of practice a day, that's all it takes. 5 minutes, 7 days a week, it will become part of their routine, just like anything else. So it's not long, and it's a really great activity for a 3, 4, 5-year-old to really bond with their parent every day for that specific amount of time. And so then after that, then we have the 1-year trophy, 2-year trophy. The gap gets a little bit bigger because it's once they get up to 1 year, it's less of a novelty and more of just like, it's really part of their their daily thing. So, we have a few students now. I don't even know if we have a trophy. It's like they're on the I think 8-year or 9-year challenge. So we have a few students who have practiced every single day without fail for 8 years.
Are you kidding me?
Not kidding. It's
That's incredible. That is incredible. Wow.
Yeah, we have photos of students all over the world, taking photos, when they go on trips, they have Mount Rushmore. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Like everywhere, the pictures from all over the world. So, but what we did from there is that, something that we've developed, and I won't, just really quickly into this, is, the paper stuff was cool, but we wanted to share it with others and, kind of make it just a little bit more, 21st century. So we've developed an app that kind of does what the papers do. And I think I told you about it a while back when we were just developing
I remember
it.
we talked about it at the last GFA. And
Yeah.
Such a cool idea.
Yeah, so it's called Practice Space, and it's just literally the same idea that we had with the paper, just all in app form. And the younger students at our school have been loving it. You can buy with gems that you earn from your practice. Every time you practice something, you push it, you get a point, but you also get a gem. And then you can buy different avatars. Like we have a bunch of Halloween avatars in there now. Well, Halloween's over, but yeah, we'll have to. And then there's a leaderboard. So, even by some of my teenager students who I did not think would dig it at all, they're totally like, I practiced double time today so I can get double points. So I did like an hour and a half. I was like, what? He's like, I'm number 1 on the leaderboard. I'm like, oh my gosh.
They're even counting not just that they've practiced that day, but the number of, at that point, they can count the number of minutes or the amount of time that they practiced too.
Yeah. The teacher sets the amount of time that they want them to practice, and then they set that time in there. And once they reach their goal, they get a certain amount of points. And if you go like time and a half, you get more points. And if you go double time, you get double points. So it really rewards students for practicing more, and they're competing with each other, trying to like, beat each other, but then, like they're practicing more, which is awesome for the teacher.
Well, that's it. I mean, you hit on such an important point, and that is building practice as just a habit. It's just what you do every day. And it's just so clear to me. I mean, I have a system that's somewhat similar, but I do have a handful of students who just, are still only putting in a few days a week. And they have
Yeah.
no shame in handing me the sheet that only has 3. I need better rewards, or I need to,
Yeah.
but this idea, I mean, the fact that you've established is that you can show these other students you can say, they've been doing it this long. Oh, look at this picture of this student with this trophy. It's a snowball effect. It becomes
Yeah. Yeah.
part. It sounds like you've created this amazing culture of within the studio of a little competition, which is good, but also just perseverance. And of course, once they get practicing, I mean, this is always the case, they start to just really feel confident. They enjoy themselves more and more, and then the intrinsic rewards start to
Yeah.
happen. And you have to
Exactly.
get over that hump first.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like you said, it's minor competition, but no one is like, they're not really like, the leaderboard's all fun, fun and games. And then the pictures of seeing, my students with the 8-year trophy, it doesn't really send someone down a spiral like, I'm never going to get there, or like, oh my gosh. It's more like, I want to do that. And how do I do it? And then sign me up for like the challenges. I want to start doing it. And the parents are on. It's beautiful to see.
So one more question, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. This has been so amazing. I know a lot of our colleagues, I mean, maybe you felt the same way. I certainly did. When I was studying at the collegiate level, I looked at my college teacher and I said, I want your job. Like, I'm just going to work hard. I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to, practice really, really hard. And then, yeah, I'm going to go out into the world and get a teaching job and teach at a college and be a full-time tenure track guitar professor. Well, that's just, we all know, most people now realize the reality of that is that there are very few jobs like that are open. And now there's so many amazing guitarists, amazing teachers out there vying for those few jobs. And so, if you're trying to give advice to people who are maybe in that situation, like they've studied, they're playing great, and they're just like, okay, what do I do? Oh my gosh, they're realizing this right now that they need to think broader. What are some of the things that you would recommend?
Yeah. So the first thing I recommend is definitely once you graduate, you have to really you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset no matter what you're doing, whether you're going into a private studio or teaching at a school like mine, or really doing anything. You have to be able to be agile and you have to be able to pivot and move quickly. And the most important thing is that you can't be complacent and you can't just sit there and wait for these opportunities to come to you. I've seen so many fantastic guitarists, like you said, coming out of so many great schools they've done all the right things from undergrad all the way through to their DMA, and then they graduate, and then it's like crickets. There's no like the colleges aren't coming to them. I mean, like, you definitely should go out and of course apply to all the colleges and stuff, but you have to really have an open mind. And I think to come to a quick point actually from earlier when we were talking about teaching chops, and how a lot of people don't take teaching kids seriously or whatever. I think that, that's one thing that both Robert and I and the teachers at my school have done. And it's part of the reason why we called our school a conservatory, even though it's not giving degrees, is that we take it so serious, just as serious as like an adult student preparing for GFA in the European conservatory or something. It's like, it's really how serious that you take it is how successful your studio or your students will be,
Oh, yeah. And
starting
that's
from a
great.
young. Yeah. Yeah. So even like when I teach a 4-year-old, it's like I'm putting in the same exact amount of like effort, energy, and like mental capability like that I would with like, someone who's like 14 and I'm preparing for the GFA youth. And because I'm doing that, that 4-year-old is going to they're going to grow up to love guitar. They're going to grow up to have really good technique. And I've seen, I'm sure we've all seen teachers who, it's just they don't care, and like they're not really there with the student, and they just want to teach adults. But it's funny because a lot of my young students, I think, are playing at just a high level as a lot of college
There's
students. So I
many,
think it's, yeah,
exactly. This idea that oh, I'll only be doing this really easy stuff and I'll be bored as a teacher. It's like, oh no, it's
yeah,
not boring.
yeah,
It's that, and when you have them for a long period of time and you can really build that great solid technique, yeah. And
yeah,
I think both of us have had the chance to teach at the collegiate level,
yeah.
and then so we've had that experience, and now I would say that I've taught some incredible young students. I had a student make the finals of the youth competition as well at the GFA years
Oh,
ago.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. And it was like, I never imagined. I mean, she was playing better than pretty much any student I'd ever taught in my life at the collegiate
Yeah,
level. And I'm like, wow.
yeah,
And so yeah, that it's just the rewards are so much. It's hard to put into words too how rewarding it is when you have worked with a student that amount of time, but also, I don't know, they're just it's a different kind of reward, I think.
it
And
is.
a lot of teachers just don't, or a lot of aspiring teachers or people starting out, they're just thinking that it's going to be this drag. But I found it's the absolute opposite. Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
lucky that
yeah.
I'm teaching kids now.
Yeah, it's great. And then, it's really at the end of the day, like when I teach my students at college or when I teach like a very young student, at the end of the day, it's teaching guitar, it's teaching music. And I think that you have to just really put in the same amount of effort for anyone that you teach, because no matter their age or level, if you don't put in like 100% of yourself into it, they're going to not come out as a great student. They're going to come out as mediocre students. So I think it's just really important to come in 100% no matter what you do as like a teacher, just like we did when we were in the practice room practicing 8 hours a day.
That's awesome. What a great thing to end on, this idea of, yeah, what you put in and to give it your all and to not underestimate, the power that can have on building up the student's level and also on what you get back from the experience too. It
Exactly.
really is. You get back when you see them develop and reach those next goals. It's just so exciting. Whether they're going to really be on a concert stage in the future or not, just the
Yeah.
rewards of their development and knowing that it's helping them to be better people. Yeah, even adults. I teach a lot of great aficionados,
Yeah.
and they're, it's just amazing to see them overcome such challenges and apply what they're learning to their lives too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this idea of giving it all. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
right there.
And I think that just to close it out, I think that the reward that you're saying that the teacher receives is fantastic, and it doesn't, just because your student doesn't make it to GFA or something doesn't mean it's any less rewarding. I feel the same amount of excitement standing next to my student who is placed in GFA as I have with the student, who just finished like playing at a nursing home or something. It's like that joy that you see in the student and the excitement that you see is what really motivates me personally to keep teaching.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much. This has been just absolutely amazing. It's such a treasure to be able to hear what you have to say about all of your experience and to share that with all of us. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
And
you so much.
I just really appreciate it.